Hi! I'm going to be starting on a new project soon. I thought it might be fun to video it so you can follow along. It's a little bit different of a project for myself. It's more art than it is a woodworking project. And I'm going to be working with a piece of old barn wood from 1881, which came from a farm my brother has in Missouri, the old barn which he tore down. I'm going to be making something you'll find out soon what that is. And the first thing I normally do is look at the computer. So we'll walk over and look at the computer, and then I'll kind of walk you through the layers of how I create that and what I figured out what I'm going to build. So it's the concept at this point. Then I might go ahead and take a look at some of the materials that I've collected so far. I don't have everything. I'm expecting some more things to come in soon, but I think they'll be here in time for me to work on the project. So I hope you follow along. It should be really fun. This is the project I'll be working on. I model most things on the computer before I get started on them, and that way I can, figure out sizes and materials and different things I want to do before I get going on it. And I'll be showing it to you in layers. So the first layer is the barn board, and it's 14 inches wide and 6 feet long. It's very weathered. This came from a barn in Missouri. It was on Stephen's property, and from what he could tell, it was built in 1881. We've got a bunch of pictures of the barn. It's really interesting. It was all made from locally sourced wood and other materials, so it's really interesting. You'll like those pictures. So this is the main board that we'll be working with. Now, since it's kind of fragile in the state that it's in, I'm going to mount it on a frame. So this layer here I've turned on is the frame, which will be behind the board. It's going to be made out of 1x4 inch pine wood that it will attach to, and that's what will be used to hang on the wall. This will give it some structural rigidity and help keep it its shape. And where we're going to attach it to the barn board is on the front. There will be these brass knobs that will be sitting flush with the surface. So I'm going to turn the frame off now since it's behind the board, and there's how it will look from the front with those brass knobs. So we got a nice mix of metal, brass metal and wood, so it kind of got a nice appeal to it. The next thing that's going to be on here is this copper bar. It's 1/2 inch wide by 1/8 inch thick copper bar that I hope I can bend the way I've got here. It'll be something reasonably close, doesn't have to be exact. But this is going to help kind of depict something that's going on here in the next layer, which are these states. Each state, and these are 1/2 inch thick birch plywood from a company I found where you give them the dimensions and they cut them out and send them to you. So I'll be able to finish these with some kind of a stain, keep wood on wood, keep them looking somewhat similar. So the model here just has some shading on them, but they're going to be wood. And we have Iowa and Virginia and Washington State, and Missouri, and Wisconsin. So you can kind of get the picture here. It's kind of the places that Robin and I have all lived. And the last thing then to help illustrate that even further is the city pins. So these will be brass, and they will be sitting almost flush. They'll stick out a little bit from those wood cutouts for each state, and they depict Cedar Rapids, Amherst, Virginia, Renton, Washington, or Bellevue, St. Charles, Missouri, and Mequon, Wisconsin. So that is the project. Hope you follow along. It's going to be a fun one. I've got some things to figure out as I go. Hopefully this board will hold together. I just had to figure out the steps to do this in so I don't have to disassemble something to finish it. I think I've got that worked out, but that's the other reason for modeling it. You kind of figure out what you have to do at each stage here to get this thing put together. So hope you follow along. So we'll take a quick look at a few pictures from the barn in Missouri. You can see it was very scenic, really a unique style of barn. Actually, you could tell it was designed by the farmer who lived there. Really pretty setting that it was sitting in, real classic. Here it is, weathered. You can see the roof is opened up there, and it's already being dismantled at this point. Locally sourced materials, just the way they were cut down on site, used to build the barn, and that's the way it stood for 100+ years. Really amazing. Unique structure, some metal in there, but of course when you have a farm you always have a pretty girl, and in our case we have one here, Robin. Okay, I'm in the workshop now. I wanted to show you some of the materials we'll be working with. There is the barn board. You can see it's got a lot of character to it. It was out there in the weather for quite a while. It actually has some parts of it where the insects got to it, but that just gives it more character. This wood back here is going to be used for the frame. It's 1x4 select pine, I believe it is, and I'll be building that. And this is that's what will be mounted behind here. And to mount it, we're going to use these brass, actually the door or drawer pulls, but they're going to be recessed so they're flush down on the surface with the board. Can't really show that here, but it'll be flush with the board and then attached to the frame behind there. There'll be 8 of them, as we showed you on the CAD drawing, holding those in place. So it's going to work out pretty good. And I've got a new setup over here I'm going to be working with. This is a Craig pocket hole jig, so I can put the boards in there for the frame and use pocket holes. That way everything will be concealed inside. You won't have that. So we'll be screwing it together along with some wood glue to help hold everything in place. So that's the starting point we've got right now. More materials on the way in, but this is what we're starting with.